Peace family. Now we're going to talk concerning the last great gold rush. Just want to share with you guys how that these things are done, how these things were done in the past. Okay, how they fooled the masses to have them moving from continent to continent, to have them becoming trapped in some type of, they gave them a bait, and they all fell for it. Okay, and the bait was the so-called gold rush. Yeah, and we're not gonna talk about where gold come from right now, but I want you guys to see the story. Yeah, and see the whole psychology, how they played the game on them, how they fell for the game, for the most dangerous game. I think many of them lost their lives trying to get to these places. Yeah, because it was not meant for you to get there somehow, but it was meant to get to some of them to get there, some of them to get robbed, and some of them probably got killed. There's no doubt about that. You know what I'm saying? There had been, we're going to do a quick reading on it, and break it down. You know what I'm saying? At the same time, it's there had been whispers of gold in the Yukon since before the 1849 California gold rush, but the region's freezing winters and rugged terrain had kept it off limits to miners. Yeah. So the first prospectors didn't arrive until the 1870s, and by 1896 only around 1,500 adventurous gold seekers were panning its creeks and rivers. In August of that year, American prospector George Carmack voyaged down the Klondike River along with two Yukon natives named Skokun, if I'm reading it right, Jean, and Tagish Charlie. The trio had planned on fishing for salmon, but after receiving a tip from a fellow miner, they set up camp at a small stream called Rabbit Creek and began looking for gold. Just like that, people. Just like that. On August 16, one of the men, either Carmack or Skookum, Skookum Jim, uncovered a large nugget from the creek bed. Just like that, people. He uncovered a large nugget of gold, right? From the creek bed. Upon further investigation, they found that surrounding area was brimming with gold deposits. People, I felt as if I had just dealt myself a royal flush in the game of life, and the whole world was jackpot. Carmack later remembered. See that? All set up, people. All cooked. 101 in a room, you know what I'm saying? And they just found that gold in a riverbed, people. Just like that. News and the strike spread through the Yukon, to the Yukon like wildfire. Rabbit Creek was soon renamed Bonanza Creek, and by the end of the month, local miners had staked out gold claims along its entire 20-mile length. See that? Somebody's already, claiming the land. Before long, an even bigger catch of color was found at the nearest stream known as El Dorado. As the discoveries piled up, many prospectors amassed huge fortunes, people, literally overnight. They're just digging the riverbed, people, and gold is popping out, is popping out, is popping out. You're a millionaire. Ain't that something? The Yacom's remoteness ensured that the early months of the gold rush were mostly a local affair until 1897, when a pair of ships laden with more than 2 tons of Klondike gold steamed into Seattle and San Francisco. The news immediately whipped the West Coast into a frenzy. Gold, 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 gold. Read a headline in the Seattle Post-Intelligencer. Yeah, stacks of yellow metal. Within days, thousands of people, including Seattle's mayor, had quit their jobs to seek their fortune in the far north. Steamer tickets became almost impossible to acquire, and merchants began peddling a host of Yacom branded food, clothing, and guidebooks. One company even advertised a special Klondike bicycle that was supposedly designed to carry supplies through the mountains. People, some 100,000 stampeders, as they became known, eventually set off for the Klondike. The Canadian government tried to head off a starvation epidemic by requiring the pilgrims to bring a year's worth of supplies. But many of the men remained woefully unprepared for the hazards of the Arctic. Not 1 in 10 or 100 knew what the journey meant, nor heeded the voice of warning. Harper's Weekly correspondent Tapanat Adney wrote. So they just heard that word about that they were digging a lot of gold in the riverbed. There's gold popping out everywhere. You know what I'm saying? How easy is to get to be a millionaire? You know what I'm saying? And next minute they even there was no more train to go to that area or nothing. You know what I'm saying? And so these dudes decide they're gonna walk. They're gonna get there, and all of that, no matter what, because they believe in gold now. As the inexperienced prospectors soon discovered, just getting to the Klondike was a Herculean task. So, as you can see, it was really hard to get up there. It was a place that was hard to get on. You know what I'm saying? It was all a game going on, and that's where the gold was. From the main jumping off point in the Pacific Northwest, the majority of travelers sailed north to Skagway, or Dia, a pair of crime-ridden boomtowns on the coast of Alaska. If they managed to escape without being swindled out of their supplies by the thugs, they then took 1 or 2 overland roads through the coast mountains. The 43-mile White Pass or the 32-mile Chilkoot Pass, they had like maps that you would follow, and it was a difficult area. Nobody knew. You're taking a risk. You could be kidnapped. They could steal you. They could steal your stuff. You could get killed. But they're going anyway because you can find the gold in the soil. White Pass was the last tip of the two, but its surface was through with rocks and was often impassable. So, okay. It eventually became known as Dead Horse Trail for the thousands of animal carcasses along its path. Chilkoot, meanwhile, boasted such a steep incline that it was impossible for pack animals to navigate. Men were forced to march up in its snow-covered slopes, one after the other with their gear strapped to their backs. It often took several dozen trips for them to lug all their supplies through the pass, people. It was really hard, but they going because there is gold on the floor. Even after they finally exited the mountain passes, prospectors still had no-wheeled flimsy boats or float an additional 500 miles down the Yukon River to the Klondike gold fields. People, there's another 500 miles. Don't worry, they're going because there is gold on the floor in the riverbank. People, they all going in there like a flood. They don't care if they die trying. You know what I'm saying? Despite the high rate of attrition, by the summer of 1898, the Yukon was bustling with new pioneers. Dawson, the closest town to the gold fields, was transformed from a frozen backwater into one of the most populous cities in all of Canada, people. Was that a plan or what? Hold on, they went there for gold and it became a town all of a sudden, people. And that gold was really there. And if it was, somebody planted there, people. Because, I've been in a lot of places. I never seen gold coming out of no soil or nothing like that. I dig a lot of soil when I was young. You know what I'm saying? So you can't fool me with that crap. Gold dust and nuggets were accepted as payment. Hold on, where we? Hold on. Yeah, I read that. Dawson, the closest town of the gold fields, was transformed from a frozen backwater into one of the most populous cities in all of Canada, people. Gold dust and nuggets were accepted as payment. So they will find gold dust and nuggets were accepted as payment in all its saloons and brothels, and many Klondike millionaires squandered their wealth just as quickly as they mined it, people. Swiftwater Bill Gates, a former dishwasher, really? A former dishwasher who had struck it rich with a claim on El Dorado Creek, famously frittered away a fortune on gambling, whiskey, and women. He once even offered a dance hall girl her weight in gold in exchange for her hand in marriage. Other Downson residents were more business savvy. A Pennsylvania native named Belinda Mulroney arrived in Yacoume in the spring of 1897 with 5,000 worth of silk ladies, underwear, and hot water bottles. This is elite people. That time, that money is you're a billionaire. You know what I'm saying? She quickly sold the whole for 6 times that amount and then turned the profits into a restaurant, a roadhouse, several gold claims, and an elegant hotel called Fairview. See that? Dawson's newspapers eventually proclaimed her. She even had newspaper people. It was all a plan. Proclaimed her the richest woman in the Klondike, people. For the vast majority of stampeders, however, life in the Klondike only brought frustration and financial ruin. The 1898 pilgrims had expected to make their fortunes in the gold fields, but by the time they arrived, local prospectors, is that prospectors? Yeah, had already stalked out all the richest claims. You see that? It was an elite of people that came in first and claimed the land and claimed the gold. And when the avalanche of people came, there was nothing for them. But let's continue reading. More often than not, the latecomers were first to either head home or settle for jobs as laborers, people, for the established miners. You see that? They were going there now to work for the so-called miners that got there first, the pioneers, the millionaires. But they didn't have access to see the gold, to see the gold veins or nothing. They were there working for them. That's all that you know. These are many men in Dawson at the present time who feel keenly disappointed. The Klondike Nugget newspaper wrote, they have come thousands of miles on a perilous trip, only to discover that the fact that there is nothing here for them. Now, people, think a little bit. If there was gold indeed in that land, yeah, and you're telling me only going to be in that area where these people are already established, the whole land will be full of gold everywhere. They will just go somewhere else and start digging and find the gold, right? Gold is a natural substance, right? That's not the case that we see happening. One of the most famous failed prospectors was author Jack London. In 1897, the 21-year-old raised money from his family and journeyed to the gold fields, only to develop a crippling case of scurvy during his first winter in Yukon. He returned home the following year flat broke, but later drew on his gold rush experiences to write The Call of the Wild and many other beloved works of literature. Well, just, propaganda boys. That's what it is. Like most gold booms, the Klondike bonanza ended almost as quickly as it began, people. In the summer of 1899, news arrived that a fortune in gold dust had been uncovered on the beaches of the known Alaska. See that? The reports immediately triggered a mass exodus from the Yukon Dawson, which had once boasted population of some 17,000, lost 8,000 residents. History's last great gold rush was effectively over. They didn't learn the lesson. They rushed to Alaska, people. Crazy. Yeah. Mainstream mining town of Dawson City, Canada during the gold rush. Yeah. But nobody's showing the gold veins. How sad. The modern equivalent of some 1 billion in gold had been removed from Klondike, people. Really. Yet most of the stampeders went home with little to show for it. How do you explain that, people? I'm going to read again. The modern equivalent of some $1 billion in gold had been removed from the Klondike. Yet most of the stampeders went home with a little to show for it. Some 30 or 40,000 reached Dawson. Historian Pierre Berton later wrote of the 3-year boom, only about one half of this number bothered to look for gold, and these only 4,000 found any. Of the 4,000, a few hundred found gold, people, in quantities large enough to call themselves rich. And out of these fortunate men, only the merest handful managed to keep their wealth. How do you explain that, people? It was all a plan, it was a planting, it was a program. Okay? I don't care what you think. While the rush was over by the early 20th century, people never stopped researching for gold in the Klondike. After the pick and shovel stampeders left, industrial mining companies moved in and continued the hunt until 1960s. Even today, the region still boosts a small local prospecting industry. It's been estimated that since the original strike in August 1896, the Klondike has produced anywhere from 13 to 20 million ounces of gold. Wow! Only one place, people. The Klondike. Wow! And you guys see what history you have? See that? How sad that is? Yeah. All the gold came from the city, people. But only a few of these men, yeah, a few hundred out of thousands, 40,000, only a few hundred got some gold, and all even fewer could kept any. All of the other ones were just slaves that came to them to build these big ass Canada cities. Yeah. Out of this gold rush. Right? It makes you think, whose land was that before the gold rush? And how come there was nobody there? And nobody knew about this gold? Like the land was a desert place. Yeah. And how come the gold disappeared so quick and could only be found in the same place? And then they're telling you another place, and half of them move over chasing that gold back there. or to Alaska. Whatever they say, they're gonna go. It's a program, people. All this gold rush stuff. Where is the gold? They tell you a lot of gold was came out of there, but nobody got rich. They all slaves. How does it work out? 1 billion in gold has been moved from the Klondike. 1 billion people. That's a whole lot of money in that time. Yeah, because you're talking about 1800s people. You're not talking about 2022. It's talking about 1 billion in 1800. That's a whole lot of money. Yeah, but he portray all these people were dumb. They were gamblers. You will get to give his gold to a woman to get married. It will. It shows you that most of them were dummies, and most of them didn't even look for the gold. They're just there to be slaves, to work for the ones that got there before. Okay, they were just workers because they couldn't own no land or dig no land because they don't have the permit. Of course, they're gonna have a permit law. They're gonna have all these laws in there. You cannot just get there and you're gonna dig gold, competing with the big sharks. Yeah, and you know that it's all a plan. So it's not like they're gonna dig and find something. You know what I'm saying? It's to me, it was all planned. They got the gold. They got these guys all run. It's psyop. That's what I'm saying. It was an old psyop, reset psyops. You know what I'm saying? It's a psyop to move the people over there. Next minute they build a big city. You know what I'm saying? So Mosai showing me all these games that they've been playing with humans. You know what I'm saying? And you see that the gold is always present in these games. The gold and the money. That's how they build cities. You see that? They're tracing gold. It's always, the energy is always gold they use. As I told you, like the religious guys. That's man. We gotta close on that. Spoke enough. But that's what it is. The gold rush, reset histories that they gave you. Okay, to me it was all, a made up story. Okay, and it was nothing but like the same psyops they pull today. See on TV. We found these, we found Mars, we found, the same thing. We found gold, the same thing. You know what I'm saying? That's it, man. I love you guys. Keep learning, keep updating, and healing yourself, and grow your own spirituality. That's it. I love you all. Peace. God bless the Mosaic.